Hello and welcome back to Filibusters with Donna and John. Donna, how you doing?
I'm doing great, John. How are you doing?
I'm trying to figure out what the weather's doing is the thing. It's warm, it's cold, it's rainy, it's dry. It's the Pacific Northwest.
That's right. I like that rain, though.
Yeah, well, it keeps things growing and green, and that's what we all love about this area. Another thing we love about this area is the folks that we have that are in leadership and or running for office.
That's right. And today we have Secretary of State Steve Hobbs with us. Welcome, Secretary Hobbs. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. That's an amazing segue. You two are just professionals, I can tell from that segue.
Well, we try. Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you for coming to the studio. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe tell us a little bit about the position that you have as Secretary of State, and then tell us about if you're running or not.
Certainly. Born and raised in Washington State. My mom came to this country in 1969, pregnant with me. When I was born, we both had to learn how to speak English and understand things. So we did that by watching Sesame Street together. So, people complain, oh, man, why can't I get the ballot count on time and quick enough? Well, that's because I'm going 1, two, Sorry, that is a dad joke. I know you appreciate that.
I love that. That was awesome.
We welcome them here.
So anyway, I was raised in a kind of working class family, attended public school, went to Everett Community College because I couldn't afford the university, joined the Army Reserves at first for the GI Bill, attended the University of Washington, eventually went active duty, and then did that for 10, 12 years, came off of active duty, came back to Washington State, and then ran for office in 2006 in the state Senate, served there for 15 years, and Kim Wyman was selected by the Biden administration to work there, so the governor needed to fill the spot, so he appointed me, and then I won the special election in 22. So here I am, here in beautiful Vancouver, so thank you.
Well, that's an awesome story. I mean, the fact that you were able to do so much prior to joining the legislature, especially with being a veteran in that's, to me, awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
But also, one of the things that people often bring up is the fact that what you said about the counting of the ballots and everything. And there seems to be more and more of a push to discredit how Washington does their election process. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. We've seen it recently where there are people who want to do away with vote by mail. But let me just remind everybody, the alternative is long lines. The alternative is, one day where you get to vote versus having 18 days at the comfort of your own home. This is about accessibility, and vote by mail allows for people to have access to the ballot and have the time to reach the ballot, right? So this state has been great. We get really good turnout. Every signature is verified. Anyone can go visit their county auditor. It's unfortunate that all of a sudden people don't like vote by mail, and this is a recent phenomena. And just remind people, it's a bipartisan effort originally thought up by Republicans. They're the ones that push vote by mail. And we are kind of the envy of other states, and I know other secretaries of state would love to go to vote by mail.
So to go along with that, then, obviously it cannot ever be 0% people trying to cheat the process or whatever. There's always going to be somebody sitting there going, well, this is how my wife wanted to vote, or this is. But I mean, what is the percentage of wrongful ballots in the area? Because I know, and I'll let you answer that, but I know I worked as an election observer, actually going through the process here for Clark County, and it is a very intense process that they go through.
It is. So it's more kind of like single digits. It's super, super low. A lot of people just don't know all the systems tied to an election. And that's our problem, right? That's our fault. We have done a really great job of telling the public when to vote, Don't forget you put your ballot in the drop box. Don't forget to mail your ballot. We have done a very poor job of telling people the election process. And what I mean by that is reminding people that they can go to their county auditor to see the process. Reminding people tabulation machines are not connected to the internet. Letting people know about ERIC, which is the Electronic Registration Information Center. So if you were to move to another ERIC state and register there, we would know about it. And so because we have these systems in place, people don't realize that we can catch these one-offs that happen. A lot of it is just simple mistakes and human error, and sometimes human tragedy. I'll give you an example. So you've heard this myth about dead people voting, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So because of ERIC and because we're tied to other systems, we talk to other databases, we know when someone passes away. So when a ballot shows up from someone who's passed away, we'll know about it. And 9 times out of 10, it's someone who died and their spouse voted for them. And it's usually a sad, tragic thing. They're doing it because I know, my husband or my wife wanted to do this. And I go back to what I said earlier is we check every signature. That's how we identify these things. And I know Greg Kimsey, your county auditor, has caught these in the past.
Right.
So it does happen. And, I understand, what happened in January 6th. There was a lot of people angry about the election, a lot of it driven by the unknown, uncertainty. They don't know about elections because we, election officials, failed to tell the public how elections are ran. So we got to try to put that genie back in the bottle, and we got to talk about elections, the sausage making of elections, the boring stuff that we took for granted. We can't take that for granted anymore.
Well, so Greg Kimsey has a really great video that I've actually shared many times that describes the process in Clark County. I'm curious if every county has the same process or if each county develops its own process. Speaking of that sausage.
So sure, it's generally the same, but the way they do it would be different, right? So Greg has his system set up. King County, it's all centralized. And they've got certain departments and there's a flow to it. Other counties are so tiny, they just do it right there in their, single office, the best that they can. So it's different in terms of the particulars of it, but generally the process is the same. And they'll all have their training videos, obviously. The Secretary of State's office does train all the election workers and certifies, obviously, the elections. And we do continuing education, too, of election workers. Okay,
so when you came into office in 21, so that's when you were appointed, and then you were reelected in 22. One of your goals was election security, increasing election security. So I'm just curious, what kinds of things have you done since you've been in office?
Sure. So we took the cybersecurity team that Kim Wyman had, about 4 people, and we enlarged it. Quite a bit, more than double. And we created a team which is flexible and responsive to county needs. We have enhanced our relationship with the National Guard, who has a cybersecurity unit that we work with. We have developed a team that combats misinformation, disinformation with putting out the truth, if you will. I mean, that's the best way to combat misinformation is tell people, hey, no, the tabulation machines are not connecting to the internet, so you can't hack into them. We've developed a system which can be, in some people's minds, controversial, but I don't think it is we have developed, with a third-party vendor, a way to scan social media so that we get the top narratives they're hitting social media so that we, as an office, can put out information that is correct. So, for example, and I always use the hacking of the elections as an example. Let's say we get information that says, hey, look on social media, this is trending. People are saying that you can hack into the elections. Then we would contact the media, and we do our own social media posts to let people know, hey, that is not true. The tabulation machines are not connected to the internet. In fact, go to your county auditor. Go see it for yourself. So we have developed that as well. We've had instances already where counties have been hit with cyber attacks. We've had fentanyl issues, as you know, being mailed, white powder instances. So we have put out money for the counties, and we've also passed laws to have minimum security standards for our counties.
Well, that is some awesome information. Appreciate that. We're going to have to take a break right now. You're listening to Filibusters with Donna and John, and we have in the studio with us Secretary of State Steve Hobbs. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Filibusters with Donna and John. We have Secretary of State Steve Hobbs here with us. And Donna, you said you had another question.
Well, yeah, I do. So thanks for all of that great information. I'm curious about a couple of things. One is you mentioned the ERIC system, and I'm not sure everybody knows what that is. I'm wondering if you can just tell people generally what it does. And also, I have heard, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, I have heard that there are a lot of Republican secretaries of state pulling out of ERIC. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are about this.
So I would say there are a few Republican secretaries of states pulling out of it. There's secretaries of state they know that this system is important. So basically, ERIC is a way for, I'm just a high summary. Otherwise, you could do a whole hour on this. Basically, they're talking to other databases, right? They're ensuring that, hey, I noticed in your state this same, Joan Smith registered there, and we notice it's identical to our Joan Smith, so we should probably, cancel our registration here, right? That, for example, or hey, there's a death certificate on Joan Smith. Maybe we should cancel her registration. So that's basically it as a high level. There are secretaries of state that unfortunately pulled out because there is this misinformation going around about how ERIC is tied to George Soros, reads metadata, changes election. None of this is true. And unfortunately, you have these secretaries of state who are, they were running for office at the time and probably pulled out for political reasons. But there are really good secretaries of state that are still sticking with it. I think of Raffensperger in Georgia, Utah Secretary of State is still in it. So there's a National Association of Secretaries of State, and we're all talking to each other, and we're hoping that this will pass all this hubbub and misinformation regarding ERIC, and we can all get on board, because really it's the best way to maintain your voter rolls and registration. So I have hope. I don't know what other direction you want to go. I mean, if you're a person that believes that if you don't like fraudulent elections and you want to catch people who are voting multiple times, then you should get on ERIC. That makes sense.
Yeah, as opposed to hanging Chad. But
yeah.
Well, so obviously this is an election year, and you're running for re-election. So tell us a little bit about what you would like to do here for the next 4 years.
Sure. Continue on with the good effort of the Secretary of State's office. There's always more security that we can do, more funding and support over 39 counties that we like to do. Also, voter outreach and education. So we just started to hire people dedicated to communities of color, disenfranchised communities, rural communities. And we're expanding upon that, which we never really did before. The other thing, too, is people forget that I have more than just elections in my office. Everyone talks about elections, and certainly that gives me the most heartache and heartburn and most questions. But, I have the 350 or so employees. There are about 20, 30 employees that do elections. I have charities, corporations, nonprofits. So we're setting up satellite offices so that if you want to start a corporation or small business or charity, it'll be a little easier for you. You don't have to travel all the way to Olympia that some people do when they run into problems online. We're also doing a lot more with libraries. I have libraries. I have the state library, and I own the libraries in all the state prisons. And for the first time, and this occurred 2 years ago under my watch, we expanded the youth detention facilities. We always had libraries in our adult prisons, but never in our youth detention facilities. Crazy, huh? 75% of the kids at Echo Glen checked out a book in the first week that we did that. we're doing more with our prisons because I feel like, hey, here's an asset. It's just sitting there. We gotta be more. We gotta be more than just checking out books. So we're developing a civics education program. So those inmates who are about 6 months to a year out from release, we'll give them a civics education course, so they're ready to engage society again as they leave. We're also doing therapeutic gaming. So I'm a big nerd. I've got ties to the tabletop game companies in Washington State. Wizards of the Coast is one of them. Wizards of the Coast makes Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. And so with them, we received 75 D&D starter kits, and we're traveling the state and dropping these off at various libraries out in the community. And working with the federal government on a grant, we're giving some libraries $400 or in some cases $2,000 to start a gaming library. My goal is to tie the community closer with the library so we don't have what happened in Dayton where people try to get rid of their library. So we did that, by the way, last night. I was at a library last night here in Vancouver and played some D&D with, maybe your listeners have heard of her, State Senator Annette Cleveland, who's never played before. And it was... She owed me one, so she had to go. So she had a great time. But we're doing programs like that. We have archives, or we have archives in our state. So, if you want to trace your family genealogy, or you want to look at their state's history, we have Legacy, which is tied to archives, where we actually put out books on history. There's so much the Secretary of State does. There's other programs on, but I can tell that. You might want to ask me another question, so I'll just stop right there. Yeah, we have a lot in our office.
Well, my chaotic neutral halfling thief is very sad he missed that.
Oh wow, you're speaking the language.
Yes, I am. Donna?
Well, so I'm curious if will there be at the libraries? Are they going to have magic? So my son played magic, so I'm more familiar with that than D&D. But will they have games at the libraries to kind of draw people in?
So the goal, my dream, is you can go to any library and you can check out a game, a board game, or maybe borrow some D&D books to run a campaign right there in the library. Now, you've got some pretty good systems here in Clark County, and I believe your library system here actually has, in some cases, run D&D campaigns in it. But we got to do more. Have a place where kids can go to actually, interact with another human being versus strictly online. D&D is growing, and by the way, it helps our own economy. So Wizards of the Coast, again, it's a Washington State company.
So that's awesome, but I'm going to ask one last question before we're done here, and that is the redistricting that just happened. Obviously, there's a lot of concern out there about how votes are going to get processed based on how people are in new districts and everything. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, once every 10 years with the census, we go through a redistricting process in our state.
Well, this is more specifically to what just happened in the courts.
It was found by the federal court that the last maps were incorrect, so the court actually redrew the maps and said, here you go. They're in place now. Candidates are now running in there. There should be no problems going in this election because we've updated the data and aligned our systems with the new map, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for coming in with us, Donna.
I did want to ask you if you can tell us anything specifically about your campaign and how people can get a hold of you if they have any questions.
Oh, why, thank you very much. So on the official side, obviously go to sos.wa.gov. Go there, or you can go to votewa.gov for election needs registration voting needs for yourself. On the campaign side, you can go to electhobbs.com and contact us there, or info@electhobbs.com. And let's have a good election out there. I'm looking forward to this, and maybe we all three of us can play some D&D after the election.
I'm all for that.
I'm game.
I see what you did there. Well, thank you again for coming in. And You're listening to Filibusters with Donna and John. We've just had Secretary of State Steve Hobbs in the studio with us, and we thank you for listening. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you.